Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Appreciate everybody for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in, we have done the first 10 picks of our mock draft. The NFL draft is tonight. We are going over our final mock. In this next segment, we are going to attempt to finish up the mock draft. We're going to attempt to get picks 11 to 32 in here. We might have to split it up into a third segment if we do not have the time. But before we get into the second part of the NFL mock draft, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation at that website with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. We appreciate anything you do give. You can control what we talk about here on the show. All you need to do is go to the link that's on the screen right now. That is gsmcpodcast.net, and leave a tip or donation. We appreciate anything that you do give. We appreciate all of you for tuning in and watching. But like I was saying, we're going to continue our NFL mock draft starting at pick 11. We got through our first 10 if you want to go back and see that. So at 11, we have the Chargers, since they made a trade with the Vikings, and the Chargers here are going to get maybe the best defensive player in the draft in Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. The pass rusher there, they need defense, and they need defense bad. They have for a long time struggled on the defensive end, whether it be running or pass defense, for a variety of different reasons: injuries, scheme not working, coaching, whatever it is. Now you have a whole new culture. They're going to go and bring in these bruisers, be defense. We know how Jim Harbaugh likes to coach a football team. I have them taking Latu here at 11. They do have that second first-round pick. So if you were looking for a wide receiver here, it just doesn't make sense at the value, because you're going to be able to get some much better wide receivers at pick 23 later down the board if you are a Chargers fan. And here we reach the Broncos. The Broncos are in a very interesting position because they have a lot of needs, right? They are still dealing with the contract situation that is Russell Wilson. They're still dealing with everything that surrounds that. They got rid of a wide receiver in Jerry Jeudy. They got rid of a lot of key pieces, but they also have maybe one of the worst quarterback rooms in all of the NFL. They have a quarterback room, after adding Zach Wilson recently, that now consists of Zach Wilson, Ben DiNucci, and Jared Stidham. I don't feel comfortable heading into a season like that. And if I'm the Broncos, I have to take a quarterback here at 12. I know there's a lot of different ways they could go. I have them taking Michael Penix Jr. He is my favorite of those middle tier quarterbacks, that being J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. If you can get him here at 12, it's still a little bit of a reach. He's more of a second-round guy to me, but the way that this draft is going, with the amount of quarterbacks that could go in the first round, Peter Schrager said 6 quarterbacks could go. I don't quite think so. I think 5 is way more than is necessary. But Michael Penix Jr. going at 12, it just feels like a necessity for the Broncos to take a quarterback in this situation, and he's the best one available. The Raiders are another team that could take a quarterback. They did just bring in Gardner Minshew, and they have Aiden O'Connell, who, if we're being honest, was not the worst. I am a big Gardner Minshew fan. He's not a long-term answer, but if you're a team like the Raiders that is kind of going through football purgatory right now, getting a guy like Gardner Minshew in there who can right your ship, get you into the playoffs if your team is good enough, is a good spot to be in. You get him, you get Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. It's not a bad spot, right? And one of those guys is going to win the battle. I do expect it to be Gardner Minshew. I like him more than Aiden O'Connell, but it doesn't make sense to reach for a guy like Bo Nix here. Bo Nix is the last quarterback that I would even not laugh at you for for drafting in the first round, right? Because of quarterback hype and stuff. Again, Bo Nix is a guy that I wouldn't take until like the third or fourth round. But the quarterback hype that's going around the league, especially surrounding this first round in the draft, with so many open quarterback positions and so many top-tier quarterbacks out here in this draft cycle, you can think about it. But I have them taking a corner Teron Arnold, the first corner off the board. I was going back and forth here between him and Kenyon Mitchell. I ended up going with Teron Arnold. He's your more prototypical corner, and the Raiders need corner help pretty badly. The Saints here at 14. Everyone knows they're taking an offensive lineman. It comes down to which one. I have them taking Olu Fashanu. He's a big guy, really long, able to come in and take the spot of Ryan Ramczyk, who's dealing with his knee issue. Unsure if he's going to have to retire or not, but he definitely isn't going to be available for at least the beginning of the season. So getting an offensive lineman in there to plug and play like Fashanu is going to be a big part of this Saints offseason. They're definitely going offensive line. They could go a different one. There's a lot of really good offensive linemen in this draft. At 15, we have the Jets after their trade with the Colts. I also have them going offensive line here. I have them taking Troy Fautanu out of Washington. Again, they need offensive line. They need it bad. Just getting a big guy to help come in, because the Jets dealt with so many offensive line injuries, and they got two tackles in the offseason. Morgan Moses and guy from the Cowboys. They got offensive line help, but always need more. Offensive line is position of value. You can go and get it here at 15. You don't even need it at 10. You get a little bit of extra draft capital, and you do get that offensive lineman still. 16 to the Seahawks. They need pass rushing. I'm taking Jared Verse. They don't need corner help. They have Witherspoon, and they got their corners recently, so they don't need their corners. They do need pass rushing. So Jared Verse, I have him going here. He's the last of that top-tier edge rusher that I have. He goes to 16 to the Seahawks. Really help out a defensive unit that, if they put pressure on the quarterback, could be one of the better defensive units in the league. Again, that secondary is really solid. It's one of the more underrated secondaries in the league. But I do believe in this Seahawks defense. Getting an edge rusher here, Jared Verse out of Florida State, goes 16 to the Seahawks. At 17, what the Jaguars desperately need is a corner. And I have them taking Kenyon Mitchell, who might be the best corner in the draft. There's a lot of hype surrounding him. He didn't allow a touchdown all season. He's very good at football. The Jaguars go out and they get a guy that can help lock down a number one receiver, something that they really struggled with pass defense last season. And now we get to the Bengals. The Bengals, who, like I said, need an inside presence. They lost DJ Reader. They just had Trey Hendrickson request a trade. I have them taking Byron Murphy here at 18 to help fill that hole, help get depth for when they do eventually have to trade Trey Hendrickson. Bengals need that defensive line depth. And the Rams, very similar situation. They had one of the greatest defensive tackles of all time retire in Aaron Donald, and they need to replace that. And you're not going to replace it with one guy, but Johnny Newton is a heck of a start. He is big, physical. He's not going to be Aaron Donald. I don't want to sit here and make you think I'm comparing him to Aaron Donald, because I am not. But he is a very, very good pass rusher, a very, very good run stopper, and the Rams plugging and playing him in that Aaron Donald spot is at least a step in the right direction. You're not going to be able to replace Aaron Donald in one off season. You're not going to be able to do it with one guy. He's one of the best defensive players in the history of the game. You're not going to be able to replace him like that. But you have to give it a shot. And Johnny Newton is my guy that I think the Rams are really going to like, and you can plug and play him there at defensive tackle. Steelers here are in an interesting spot because you have some really good offensive linemen left. You have J.C. Latham, Jackson Powers Johnson, Graham Barton, all these really good offensive tackles that are still left. Amarius Mims is still left. But their offensive line was kind of solid last season. I do have them taking an offensive lineman here. I have them taking J.C. Latham, who is huge. With the Arthur Smith now being the offensive coordinator, we know how much he loves to run the ball. Getting a guy like J.C. Latham in there who is just a bulldozer. He will move bodies. open up lanes for Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, get the play action more effective, for a guy like Justin Fields if he ends up starting. Russell Wilson, who also really loves his play action. Just really solid offensive lineman, a big, big guy here at 20. Dolphins lost a lot of offensive line help as well, so at 21, I have them taking Jackson Powers-Johnson. I was going back and forth between him and Graham Barton, both of whom I assume will be playing center. Graham Barton was playing left tackle over at Duke, but he is definitely more of a center or a guard. But I have them taking Jackson Powers-Johnson, who is the number one center in this draft, which leaves the Eagles Nate Wiggins at 22. They need a corner. They need a corner bad. They have James Bradbury and Darius Slay, both of whom are getting older, both of whom kind of lost a step last season. You need another corner, and Nate Wiggins, who ran an incredibly fast 40, is long, is big, is tall, can make that big difference for the Eagles. Putting him in that secondary at the Eagles for 22, they need a corner. If they don't take Nate Wiggins, maybe a guy like Cooper DeJean, who's still available here, might go. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Ennis Rakestraw Jr. There's a lot of great corners here in this draft that might go. I have them taking Nate Wiggins. I love Nate Wiggins as a prospect. He can do a lot of things. He's not my cornerback one, but he is definitely up there. His combine was really, really good. And at 23, we're going to finish off that Vikings trade. The Chargers finally get their receiver. I have them taking Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, the second LSU wide receiver to go in the first round. His deep speed, his deep threat ability is going to be huge. You get your down the play. You pair him across from Josh Palmer after they've lost the rest of their wide receivers. You get a weapon, a first-round weapon, a bona fide wide receiver that, can take attention from the defense. The Chargers need a lot on offense. I expect them. They got some running backs from the Ravens. They got J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, which does really fit the Harbaugh system, I think. But you have a guy like Justin Herbert, and you're going to let it fly. You need a guy that he can let it fly to, and a speedster like Brian Thomas who, can run really crisp routes as well. Was nothing to scoff at LSU across from Malik Neighbors. Is a really good pick here. So that's the Chargers at 23. We're going to finish off the rest of the NFL draft, picks 24 to 32 in the third segment coming up next here in just a second. So stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.